And now we have oil surging. We're seeing what? Airlines and cruise companies not prepared. Who's prepared for 130 oil? They were prepared and doing great at 70, 80, and expecting 90. That's fine. That's a healthy economy. That's normal. We've been lucky that oil prices have been so low for so long. But before that, we went, 5, 6, 7 years of over $90 a barrel. And yes, we went as high as 140 sometimes. But, that's pretty much on average where we should be. But 125, 130, now you're seeing airlines, cruise companies, travel agency stocks, hotels start pulling back as well. I mean, $125 a barrel. I thought 100 would hold. You heard me say that last week or the week before. Saying, wow, everyone is kind of long on this trade, but apparently they were hedging themselves because once we broke through 100, boom, it was gone. It was gone. It went from 100 to 108 like immediately. But if you need more confirmation why this is happening or how dumb our politicians are, here it is. Yeah, we have Russia, Ukraine. Russia, one of the largest oil producers in the world. But here, what's the solution? Let's place sanctions on Russia, which will result in a massive increase in energy prices, which hurts everyone in the world except for countries where energy is their prime source of economic growth, like Russia, Iran, Venezuela. Many countries that hate us. Let's make them stronger and make us weaker at the same time. Then we have these crazy, insane goals of decreasing our dependence on fossil fuels. So the U.S., even though we have more oil than we know what to do with, are still not able to drill at full capacity. And there's permits there, but they're going to cost. It's going to cost tremendously with carbon credits and things like that. They were trying to cut back just like the whole world wanted at a time where it's threatening our national security. Things are different. Europe is in the same boat. They actually did a fantastic job. Super aggressive, reducing the dependence on fossil fuels, renewables. This is why their economies are getting annihilated now as energy prices are insanely out of control. Because even though they switched to those alternative measures, which cost more, not anymore, I'll get to that in a second. But you're looking at Europe still having a ton of dependence, and that's why they've had to push for more renewables on foreign oil, including Russia. So you look at their economies are getting annihilated with energy prices higher and higher, insanely out of control. You're looking, you could say, well, Russia, it wasn't Russia. They were in crisis pretty much for a year, 9 months before this even happened. Look at the UK, months before the Russian invasion, when oil was at 70. It's up 80% plus since then, and 40% plus this year alone. And natural gas prices, while they're $5 here, which people are like, wow, that's expensive, they're over $100 in the UK. They were surging before this happened. And now today, our government said, you know what? We're going to take a stand. We're not going to import Russia oil. And it's funny how everyone on both sides, and I don't care what side you're on, this is about your money. Okay, I'm going to go back and forth about stuff, and I'm getting emails, people pissed, the conservative, you're liberal, certain things. I tell it how it is. I don't care. If you're going to get offended, get offended. My job is to help you make money. That's why you listen to this podcast. Try to give you as many facts as I can. But you have people on both sides of the aisle that are applauding this move in hopes Europe is going to follow and do the same thing. So quick note here on stats that you might not be seeing in the media because everyone's happy, high five, and say, wow, we're punishing Russia. In the meantime, I just paid $93 to fill up my truck. I don't even remember paying over $80 in my life. $93. That's how much it costs. And you know how much driving I have to do with my kids. But quick note here. So if you're looking at Russia oil, right, banning it, those imports, that amounts to 3% of U.S. crude oil imports, 3%. But it's only 1% of total crude processed by U.S. refineries. Now, what does that mean? Because you're like, wow, 1%, that's really nothing. You have to look more into it. Because the U.S. refinery part is really interesting. 1%, that's not going to hurt us. Nobody's going to ask why. Well, I'm going to ask why. So the U.S. buys Russian oil in part because they produce a certain type of oil that's able to feed refineries in order to make fuel at top capacities. That's the professional definition. To put simply, it's some of the best oil in the world that's semi-refined already. Where American refineries, what are they used to? They're accustomed to processing thick, sludgy crude from Venezuela, Middle East. It's not like that with Russia. It's a different type of oil that's fantastic. And you see it just in those numbers. You say, well, U.S., just 3% of imports. That's a little number, but that's a pretty big deal in a market where supply is now super tight. And you try saying your margins are going to be lower by 3%. Say that on a call, and your stock's going down 15, 20%. So 3% seems like a tiny number. But we're getting a special type of oil that's really good, that's very refined, before it even gets here. I mean, 3% is not a game changer for us. However, we want Europe to follow suit. Are you crazy? Are you absolutely out of your mind? And what if Europe does follow the U.S. and also bans imports from Russia? I'm going to answer that question for you, actually, because they can't. They can't do it. There's no way that they could do it. Unless they want to immediately destroy their economies. They'll destroy their economies immediately. The damage will be felt for many, many years. Russia, largest energy exporter in the world, the largest energy exporter, supplying the EU 40% of its gas and 30% of its oil. So if you look at Europe, they decided to ban imports, so oil imports. Oil is going to go over $200 in a second, very, very easily. And we're at 120, 125, where we are today. And that's not a pie-in-the-sky number and just throw, I hate when people just throw out numbers. They just throw out numbers. Oh, the market's got to go down 25%. What's the numbers behind it? I have no numbers. I just think it's going down 20. No, that $200 barrel isn't some number we just pulled out. And Bank of America is forecasting for over $200 a barrel if Russia exports are cut off, which means, and this is based on a shortfall of 5 million barrels a day. 5 million barrels a day, which is a lot. Consider, what is it, 80, 81 million barrels a day consumption? 5 million barrels a day you're pulling from the market? So while politicians are trying to come together globally to stop Putin, they're only destroying their economies while making energy-producing nations much, much stronger. Think about that for a minute. These are all politicians. These are the people that don't know how to run a business, don't know how to do anything. I mean, you could argue what you want about Trump, and you could hate his guts or whatever. The reason why Trump got in is because everybody was sick of the political bullshit. And what happened? We were energy independent, you saw low crime rates, there weren't any wars, nothing like that. Now, when you get politicians in there, it's a different story. Their agenda is a lot different from someone else. I'm not saying that Trump did everything right. He didn't, and he's a buffoon. And again, having him as president with just his personality, again, there's strengths and weaknesses to every single president. And I get it. I get why they hated him. He did everything the best, the greatest. I'm this. Everybody. Black community loves me more. Latin community loves me more. No one did more for them than me. No, I get it. Why you hate him. I get it. But it's just interesting how when you bring an insider in there, it was kind of easy to fix a lot of those problems when politicians, that's not their agenda. So here we are. What's the solution? What's the solution to get oil back down and get economies back running? You know what? There's several that are pretty simple that should satisfy the masses. But of course, politicians are involved. And it's politics. And money trumps national security, your livelihood, my livelihood. And we saw that firsthand during COVID, which you should see, by the way. It's an incredible video. I don't care what side you're on. If you don't believe in facts or whatever and you have your opinion, don't watch it. Because whatever. But if you really look at this, just watch it. It's from Dr. Tess Lawrie to Dr. Andrew Hill, where they produced dozens of studies showing early on how ivermectin considerably reduces death in COVID patients if taken early. And Dr. Hill basically canned it instead of presenting it to the WHO and the CDC, or he probably did show them. And then that's when the massive campaigns came out to show that this super cheap alternative medicine that anyone could buy should be banned. Anyone suggested it works should get thrown off social media, even though it has very few risks, almost hardly any risks. And if you're a doctor and mention that you should take this, you're probably going to lose your license. That's what fueled the massive push behind vaccines and getting the emergency approval. What does that mean, emergency approval? It means that you're allowed to prove it without even worrying about the risks involved or even publishing the risks involved. And look at the massive amount of money generated across the board for all of these companies. It's very, very powerful. Why did you suppress something that's cheap that everybody could buy? It's powerful. I'm just saying, whatever side you're on, or whatever, just watch it. It's kind of amazing. You have tons of doctors saying, here's our data. Here's what we're showing. Here's our studies. And they're going, nope, we don't care. That's what happens. It's not about saving you or helping the country. No, it's their own pockets. That's what politicians are. Come on, you guys have to know that by now. They don't care about you. They really cared about you. I mean, think about it. All the cities would be cleaned up. You'd have more police on the streets. It'd be safer than ever. They don't care about you. Absolutely not. Anyway, so in the U.S., we could easily increase production. When we start producing enough oil, not just satisfy our energy needs, which we were doing a few years ago, But we make an absolute fortune exporting our oil and natural gas to Europe. This is going to make us incredibly, incredibly, incredibly powerful compared to the rest of the world. Incredibly powerful. And for the climate change crazies that think the world's going to end in a few years unless we do something today, which again, we were told by Al Gore over a decade ago, which, he's now close to a billionaire from the money he generated from carbon credits off his initiatives and owned a whole bunch of houses, even on the coastline. Again, we're supposed to be underwater right now. I'm not against climate change, but not to the point where it's a threat to our national security, where now, look at our economy, look at what people are paying for oil, look how much control other countries have over us, simply based because of laws that it's not that we used to be totally dependent on Saudi Arabia, on OPEC. It wasn't the case with our new technology. We have the energy here. Whoever has the energy controls the world. That's it. It's that simple. Forget about technology. Technology, what's it fueled on? It's fueled on electricity. Whoever controls the energy, like you're seeing with Russia. The whole entire world's against Russia now, and nobody can do a thing to stop them from invading Ukraine. Think about that. Can't do a thing. But how about this? How about we drastically increase production, and we use the tens of billions of profits from oil to funnel into alternative energy projects? Doesn't that make sense? That's an easy, quick solution. But we know it's not going to happen because politics are involved. Instead, we're looking at countries like Iran, Venezuela to increase oil output as we beg them. Increase. I'm not sure if you've been to those areas lately, and it's probably a reason why, because you probably get kidnapped as an American. I do have friends in both areas, but still, these are countries that are not friendly with the U.S. Why would we do that instead of not increasing oil here? Second option, open all uranium plants again. It's the safest, cheapest, most cleanest 24-hour baseload power. 24-hour baseload is important. Solar, you need the sun. Wind, you need the wind to blow. This is 24/7. Baseload power all the time. That's still super cheap. And closing uranium plants is also about politics. There's a massive agenda and tons of lobbying dollars, which is bribes, being paid to politicians to shut this great form of energy off. But now, again, national security, crisis mode, oil prices, higher and higher and higher. It's insane. But you even had Elon Musk come out this week. Elon Musk, EVs, climate guy, owns the largest EV company on the planet. So what he's saying here did not support his agenda. And he goes, hopefully it's now extremely obvious that Europe should restart dormant nuclear power stations and increase power output of existing ones. This is critical to national and international security. Also, nuclear is vastly better for global warming than burning hydrocarbons for energy. And for those who mistakenly, as in parentheses, I'm quoting him here, think that this is a radiation risk, pick what you think is the worst location. I will travel there and eat locally grown food on TV. I did this in Japan many years ago, shortly after Fukushima. Radiation risk is much, much lower than most people believe. Why aren't you opening up nuclear plants? Why? Safe, 24-hour baseload, cheap, climate friendly. Why? Why not? What are you worried about? Politics. So nuclear is an easy option. Yet, what are we seeing from Europe? They're thinking about it, but not yet. Instead, turning to coal again to make up the difference in low oil and gas supply. Coal, a form of energy that's death to everyone. Coal. Fire everyone. Coal. You have coal. Everybody dies. Coal, no way. You can't have coal ever, right? Where the U.S. is in the process of closing 75 coal-fired plants due to new regulation passed by the EPA, which we all know is the most corrupt government organization in the world. I really wish that they were for climate change, but they're not. They're full of shit. Trust me, I've seen projects that they closed down that have nothing to do with climate change. That's another day, another rant, okay? Germany is considered going back to coal. France is, but listen to this. You have Portugal, you have the UK, Greece, Hungary, Denmark, all said, we're done with coal. No way. It's bad for the environment. We are done with coal. That's it. No more coal. Which is kind of ironic if you think about it. Since they now import a shitload of coal from Russia, which is 87%, from 87% in Poland to 44% in Spain. Everybody else is in between. That's how much they import coal. That's how much as a percentage. So I guess gold, if you're looking at coal being produced in Russia, it doesn't hurt the planet as much as coal being produced in other countries, right? I guess that's the case. I don't know. Why? Why not produce it on your own soil? No, we're going to get it from Russia. We want to save the planet, but we're going to get it from someplace else. You gotta love this shit. You can't make it up. I mean, it's This is our politicians. This is what they're talking about. So nuclear seems much better than coal, but coal is also a temporary option since, we're talking about national security right now, which should trump climate change, which it's not right now. It's unbelievable. Even though everyone's paying higher prices, economies are going to channels, we're seeing it. It's going to get worse. How about another solution? A solution that I think you heard of. I'm pretty sure you heard of this solution. I'm not too sure if you did or not. Yes, I'm being super sarcastic with New York. How about natural gas? When did natural gas become so hated by environmentalists? It's responsible for reducing more carbon emissions than solar and wind over the past few years. For example, in Europe, emissions in 2018, latest figures available, were 23% below 1990 levels. In the U.S., emissions fell 15% from 2005 to 2016. This was mostly due to more natural gas usage. Again, this is political. Nobody cares about facts, data, numbers, just like they didn't care about numbers during COVID. Just close everything. Keep kids out of school for a year. Make them wear masks. This is what we're going to do, no matter what the data showed. But those who truly believe, if you're a climate change fan and you're like, way out there, which is fine. You could believe whatever you want to believe. It's America's free country. Believe whatever. But if you're really way out there and truly believe that we can achieve 100% renewables in the U.S. one day, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, I'll give you 50 years. There's something that you should know if that happens in the U.S. It's going to require using 50% of all the land in the U.S. to make this happen. So you're probably not going to live anywhere. You're going to be living on a park bench someplace if there's any park benches available, which is cool, but the planet's going to be saved. You think the planet's going to be saved. You really don't know. You think. That's a stat you're not going to hear from the EPA ever. But that's what 100% renewables does. That's okay. Nobody wants to ask questions, right? We just say, hey, this sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. Let's put a lot of money into it. You're going to make money? Doesn't matter. We have a blank check. We're governments. We could print money forever. Who cares? Who gives a shit, right? We just print money. I don't know if we'll ever make money on it. Who cares? I don't care if you make. I don't care if you make money. It's not going to hurt me. I'm a politician. It's not going to hurt me at all. Just whatever you want to do. Here's the money for it. Sounds good. Wait, these people want it. Am I going to get their votes? Okay, let me throw money at it. That's a political landscape. But turning on nuclear, opening the pipelines, producing more oil and gas in the U.S. to where a portion of those profits will fund alternative energy projects, which, by the way, right now, pay attention, guys, because the cost to build renewables in Europe is now much, much lower than the current power prices that we're seeing. Now, the power prices are really out of control in Europe. We're seeing, I just mentioned natural gas in the UK, $100, $5 here, natural gas. So it costs 40 euros per megawatt on average to build a new solar and wind in Europe versus current European power prices that are closer to 150 euros to 200 euros. And that's megawatt, depending on the country. Think about that. 4 to 5 times more expensive. If you're looking at power prices right now, that opens up the floodgate for alternative energy. There's a solution right there where everyone wins, at least over the long term. We're producing more oil for now, funneling that money into alternative energy, which for the first time in decades, and maybe it's been that way for a few months now, is economical. It was never economical. Now it's economical.